Yeah.
You are
I
now
went to
on
Arkansas to get my
camera.
dog.
That's the sums of squares. Okay? That's the first part, or the first, second, and third part. Here's the first part, the second part, and the third part. Right? So now what's the fourth part to get variance?
To get variance. Squared. We already squared
It's
it.
already squared.
Well, you
Each
put it
value is
over
squared.
something. We put it over something.
You put it
Over x. Over x.
Over n. Over n. Now it's not sums of squares. It is variance.
Is there an abbreviation for variance? Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Sigma squared.
Sigma squared.
Oh my.
Isn't that a frat?
Wait,
What is
and it looks
it?
like an O with a ponytail?
Yeah, looks like an O with a ponytail. Is that close enough?
No, it is a sigma. It
Isn't
is a
that
different.
French
It's just a
sigma?
different. There was an email that just went
Oh,
out.
sorry.
But it is, I think it's a sigma. I
Yeah,
think you're
Sigma
right.
Sigma Nu. From
Sigma,
Monsters
Sigma.
I think there is a new in there, but anyway.
Well, nu is a letter. It comes after mu, which is on the board.
Now, what variance is that now? Because it's a sigma? Which one is it?
No. We put it over n, which is our sample.
No.
Right?
No. What is this?
Mu.
That's the population mean. So what is this? That's the population standard deviation, variance.
No, variance. Not standard.
Okay, so mu is population mean.
Uh-huh. So
Sigma
this has
squared
got to
is
be
variance?
the population variance. Okay? Now, let's do it for a sample mean, and be careful about what textbooks tell you, because they often tell you wrong in this. Okay? Let's make it for a sample variance. What do we have to change here?
The mu.
Oh.
Change it to what?
That's changed. Okay.
Is that Bessie?
You get that on tape?
It'll match the rest of your videos with the cows.
Yeah.
Photoshop one in.
What do we change it to? We change it to the symbol for the sample mean.
Yeah, X bar.
X bar.
Oh.
So as soon as I put X bar up there, well, you know that this is going to be the sample mean. And this is no longer going to be the population variance.
It's a sample variance.
It's the sample variance.
So that element of the equation.
But we always do one more thing. Change one more value. N minus 1. Now here's where...
Wait, why?
Yeah, good question. Why? It is to correct for the bias from a sample taken from a population.
Because you can only be so much correct.
It's biased. It will underestimate the population parameter. So this is really not the sample variance. I don't care what someone tells you it is. That is not the sample variance. That is the sample variance. When we do that, now what is it?
It's accounting for error.
It is the estimate of the population variance. So this is really kind of a misnomer to say that this is the sample variance. It is not the sample variance. The sample variance would just be divided by n. But we want to estimate the population parameter. And what is the symbol? Not sigma squared, but s squared. Okay? Little s squared. Okay? But we said that variance, we never use it.
But we square, well, we get the square root of it and get the standard deviation.
Ah, either one of those, really either one of those three. We get the square root of it. And now that's a sample mean. That's still the sample mean. That's the n minus 1. When we divide by n minus 1, we're getting the estimate of the population variance. Not really from the sample variance. And it's no longer variance. But it is standard deviation.
And that's SD, just in case.
And that is S
D.
or SD.
What is bar SD? Oh my goodness.
Absolute value. What is bar?
No, it's
He was
not
just
good.
underlining
Oh,
or.
okay. I was like, shit, there's another. Excuse me.
Bleep it again.
No, we're going to leave that in there.
Yeah, that's gonna come back.
Sorry, I was kidding, but I thought, yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
gonna get
S or SD. Okay? May have the periods, may not have the periods. Standard deviation.
Sorry to go stress
No,
my
it's
life.
Okay? Which one of those is going to be reported? Variance or standard deviation?
Standard
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 deviation.
deviation. I'm not going to say that you won't see the other one reported, but you normally
And
aren't.
standard deviation is how far something deviates from the mean, correct? Or am I wrong? Sorry.
You're close, okay? But when we divide by n, how far what deviates from the mean? When you divide the total by n, what are you getting? When you divide the total for something by n,
The group as a whole, the standard deviation of the group as a whole?
no, just
What are you asking?
Then you're getting.
when you divide some quantity by n, you're getting the kind of average, you're getting a kind of mean, aren't you? You're getting a kind of average deviation. But it's not the average deviation. Because the average deviation would not be squared. So think about this. Think about this. Let's say that you had okay, and here was the average, and then here were the numbers that you got. Okay? Now, using that, so that's 14, 15, that's 14 minus 2 is 12, and there's 4 of them, so what's average? 3, right? So the average is 3. So do the math with me. X1, 7 minus mean 3 is
4.
4. Okay, we got a 4 and we got a square. Okay, now this one, 7 minus 3 squared.
16.
Okay, -1 minus 3, -4 square it.
16.
16, and -1 minus 3,
64.
-4, and square it. Is that 4 of them? Yeah, there's 4 of them. Okay? So the total then is what?
84.
64.
Wait.
And we divide it by let's use the population. This is every value in the world. So it's 64 divided by what? How many yens are there? 4 of them. So what's the
16.
variance?
Oh, it's 30.
Wait,
16?
Variance is 16. There's the variance of this population. That's a stupid sounding number. They didn't vary by 16 at all.
oh my gosh, I feel like such an idiot. Standard deviation squared, that which is 4, which is how much they vary from the central tendency.
So the standard deviation of this is what?
4.
It's 4. It's the square root of 16. And sure enough, look at it. How much did that vary?
4.
How much did that vary?
4.
How much did that vary?
4.
How much did that vary? Standard deviation, it's also the average deviation. But let's try another one. Let's make the average be 3. And let's use 11 and 4. 16. No, 11 and 9 and
Are you just, are you?
okay, now that's 11 and 9 and minus 2 and minus 2. Okay, what's the average of those two? 20 of those 4.
16.
16, 4 of them. The average is 4, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so do the math with me. 11 minus 4,
7.
7. 9 minus 3, 6.
Oh, minus 3 or minus 4? Because you said the average was 4.
No,
Yeah, because we did 20 minus.
I used the wrong numbers, didn't I? 7, 14. I wanted to do 12.
I'm confused.
That's 20. Sorry about that.
No, it's what?
20 and then minus 4 and minus 4. Now what's the average? Same average, 3.
12.
Okay?
Divided by 4.
Same average, right?
Mm.
Now this top was right. Now this, minus 4 minus 3 is minus 7.
Wait, that was.
The top number isn't right. 11 minus 3 is 8 squared.
Keep me straight.
Sorry.
Okay? We're just going to do this. You can do it, but you don't have to.
Sorry.
What's the next one there?
Negative 7.
It's minus 7 again. Let's do that. Is that right? $64, $36, $49, $49. I took this and squared each one of them and added them up. 64 and 36 is 100, and 49 and 49 is 98, 198. 198 divided by 4, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, is, that's, no, that still isn't. It's 40. I can't do the math. 49.5. Okay. What is the variance of these numbers then? What is the population parameter for these 4 numbers?
49.5.
49.5. What was it over here?
16.
16. This is what?
The variance.
This is the variance. This is the variance. Why is this variance so much bigger than this one? The mean is the same.
Because the numbers are more spread
Because
out.
the numbers vary more. Because the numbers vary more. Okay? And this standard deviation, then oh, 7.0 something. Bigger than 7. The square root of 49.5 is something bigger than 7. On average, they vary more than 7. Well, geez, why is it that they, on average, vary more than 7? This one doesn't. This one varies exactly 7. This one varies exactly 7. This one varies only 6. And this one varies only 8. These contribute more to variance than these numbers do. Okay? It's just that simple. We can even have it like this. We had numbers like that, which would have a bigger variance. That 4354 still adds up to 16, doesn't it? But look what happens when I...
It has less variance. If you put it on a number line, it's going to make more sense, isn't it?
It's just really about how closely related they are.
Yeah. Huh. Divided by 17.
These numbers here, do they vary more than these numbers here? They still add up to 16 difference, don't they? If they add up to 16 difference, why is this a bigger standard deviation or variance than this one? The average deviation is the same. The average deviation. But it's not an average deviation, it's a standard. Things that are farther from the mean count more. That's what standard deviation does. So it isn't just that we square them to make them positive numbers. I mean, if we just want to make them positive numbers, we'd just take absolute value. I mean, I read in textbooks where they say, well, the reason that we square them is so we can get rid of the negative numbers. And I say, why don't you just take the absolute value? What's the difference? It's because farther out contributes to more to the variability. Even though the average is the same, the standard deviation is 4.1 or 4.2 or whatever the square root of 17 is. Okay? So the standard deviation is different than the average deviation. And it's different because it takes into account numbers farther away from the mean. Okay? Now, just so you'll have this, this isn't the way that anyone calculates standard deviation and variance. We tell them I'll call them like that. I must have new calves. My grandchildren, either that or I've got a cow that's trying to calve and I'm not there to help him. So this standard deviation is a measure of a kind of average deviation, but not really the average deviation. Okay? It's more than the average deviation. It will always be equal to or a number greater than the average deviation. Here's how it's actually, you know, if you spread that out, you know, then it's something like this. The sum, here's how you'd actually calculate it. And I want you to, you can write that down so that you could, you know, impress your your friends who are in Dr. Tolson's class and they're having to do all that by hand as practice. It's good practice, but yes.
So, in your research, let's say you have some major outliers. Would you ever take just your interquartile range, your second quartile that you're maybe working in to get rid of some of
Absolutely.
the outliers, and would you find your standard deviation just within that interquartile?
No.
So you would still find it
Yeah.
for your entire data set?
I would either report the interquartile range or I'd report the standard deviation.
Okay, but not, okay.
Okay. Now, here I said I was going to come back to semi-interquartile range. Let me show you why. Real quickly, why. You remember looking at this. What does that represent there?
The mean.
That represents the mean. What else does it represent?
The
Median.
Median. What else does it represent?
Mode.
The mode. Okay? Now, let's say that what I want to get is a standard deviation. Okay? Which side does standard deviation go on? This is a trick question.
both.
Goes on both sides, doesn't it? This is one standard deviation from the mean, and this is one standard deviation from the mean. Both of them are one standard deviation. Okay? It's not an inner standard deviation or something like that. It's one standard deviation. Now, let's do a similar thing and say, here is the distribution. It's something like this. Okay? Tell me where the mean might be of these data. Might it be about right here? Maybe. That might be the mean. I'm going to draw this a little higher. Where might the median be? About half of the folks on one side and half on the other side.
Right about there.
Yeah, about right there. Where's the mode?
Right there.
All the tall point.
It's actually right here, isn't it? Okay? If I computed the standard deviation, how many of the people am I going to get? How many am I supposed to get? About? How many people does this represent? Well, here's all these people.
30%.
4%.
Okay, about 34%. And how many over here?
30.
About 34%. It's actually a little more, but that's close enough for government work. Now, let's do median. We got it. Let's do quartiles. When we're doing quartiles, what are we dividing them into?
Quarters.
Into quarters. What size are the quarters?
25%.
They're equal in terms of n. Are they equal in terms of n over there? No. They're about equal. So, you know, maybe this is the third quartile. There's the second quartile. And maybe this is the first quartile. Or Q3 they call it. And this would be Q2. Okay?
Is that Q?
I mean Q1. Because this is Q2, isn't it? Okay? What is the interquartile range?
Q1, Q3 minus Q1.
It's Q3 to Q1.
Interquartile
Q3 to Q1. What is semi-interquartile range?
It's Q1 to Q2 or Q2 to Q3?
Well, or
Or
how would be another way to get it?
no,
So the average of,
The average of the distance from Q1 to Q2 and the average and of Q2 to Q3.
So Q3 minus Q1 divided by 2?
That's right. Q3 minus Q1 divided by 2. That would give you the semi-interquartile range.
Are we ever going to actually use the semi-interquartile range? Ms. Kennedy is nodding.
we will.
Q2
Probably not.
Never?
Q1.
Probably
You're a
not.
statistician, you're gonna say never?
Huh?
Just-
No, I said that's why I said probably not. But why is that? Why do I say that that's what we ought to use instead of interquartile range?
More accurate.
What is it compared to?
More
Standard
relevant.
deviation.
So to get the
It compares to standard deviation. It's one side of that distribution. And it kind of tells us what's around the median. It is to standard deviation, semi-interquartile range is the standard deviation what median is to mean.
But you would only.
And I
report
cannot believe that for whatever reason, no one can tell me why we dropped. It's still in text, some textbooks. You can still find it online, semi-interquartile range. To me, it makes perfect sense. But everyone just talks about interquartile range now.
Semi-interquartile range is Q2 minus Q1? Or
No, Q3 minus Q1, that's interquartile range. Semi divided by 2.
Okay.
I think
got
it's something that's probably more interesting than relevant. Like,
Yeah, it probably is.
But it's helpful to know, like,
But
if you're
it's,
reading.
it really is, it's relevant. I would want to know the semi-interquartile range because I understand standard deviation.
Right.
If I didn't know standard deviation, then maybe it would make sense to just talk about the interquartile range. But I understand, and that's what you're going to see all the time is standard deviation. If you see median and someone talking about it and they give the interquartile range, you're going to say kind of like variance. Well, what good does that help me? You know, I want something that's more comparable. And that would be more comparable.
It's not even in the text.
It's not in our text.
It doesn't even have a bad joke to it.
No, that's right. He doesn't have a bad joke about it. He's
I
too
love this
young.
book. I love
He's too young to know semi-interquartile range. But look it up online. See if you can find what it is.
That's funny that you say he's too young, but look it up online.
Yeah, you can find it online. Bet you can find it online. Put it in semi-interquartile range. That's why to do it. Why do you do variance? If you don't use it, if you don't report it, why do you do variance?
Because you have to find the standard deviation.
So you can calculate standard deviation. That's the only reason for doing variance. That's not the only reason, but that's why we compute variance, is so we get the standard deviation. And standard deviation tells us something. Variance, I don't know what, I don't know what purpose 16 is the variance. That's of no value to me. How do you mean? They're from 7 to minus 1, it ain't close to 16. How can the variance be 16?
Well, that's half of the variance. That's the variance from.
Okay, so the other one,
Yeah, it's not comparable.
no, just not comparable.
There's no regularity.
There's no regularity. Remember the other one was some huge number. What was it?
Variance tells us actually.
The other one was 49 and a half. Yeah, the other one was 49 and a half, the variance. And the numbers were 11 and 7, or 11 and 9, and -4 and -4. Yeah, that's what they were, weren't they? And 11 to -4, that's 15. What relation is 15 to 49.5? None whatsoever. But the relationship 4 here, and the other one was 7, and on average it kind of varies. That's 7. That's 7. This is 6, and that's 8. Yeah, it's bigger than 7, isn't it? Not much bigger, because 8 and 6 and 7 and 7's bigger than 7. Not much bigger. I mean, 8 and 6 and 7 and 7 on average is 7. But the 8 contributes more than the 6 cuts down. Does that make sense then? The 8 contributes more than the 6 saves us. It's the only difference in the two numbers, really. And why that's not just 7, but something larger than 7. Yes?
Because you've taught this for a while and I'm having trouble with it.
Well,
This is
Oh,
first
geez,
semester.
okay. So I have trouble envisioning algebraic functions. That's just how my brain works. What's a visual way to understand this? Like, how could it be related in a picture?
This being what? Standard deviation?
Yes, sir.
Standard deviation right here. Okay? What is standard deviation used for?
I was just gonna say standard deviation is used to tell you how far away it is from the mean. So where
Yeah, it's used to kind of tell you, on average, not real average, not arithmetic average, but kind of how much does it deviate, sort of on average. The ones that deviate further contribute more to the deviation than the ones that close. But on average, how much do numbers deviate from the mean?
But does that tie into length of tail? Is that why the bigger the deviation, the longer the tail? Is that correct? I know that's,
Well, the bigger the deviation, the longer something has to be.
okay, so that, okay.
But
Watch out, watch out.
Your foot, your little foot.
Yikes.
it would have caught it other thing.
Uh-huh.
It would have just ripped it out. Here, you want to show it? You want me to show you?
No.
I need a new one anyway. The control, the shift, the left shift key doesn't shift. And I took it to Bel Air, and he said, I think it's sticking or something. He worked on a little bit. He said, you need a new laptop. I thought, man, I hope that my wife doesn't break her leg or something by taking to her. Take her to him. Stumped her toe. Oh, well, she stumped her toe. They shoot horses, don't they?
Yeah, it's like a horse, yeah.
You know,
You turn an ankle, all you are is glue.
but that's what he said. I said, what am I supposed to say? Take it. I think I'm going to take it to, what is that?
SCC, Student Computing Center.
No, I'm going to take it to the place over there. Computer
Geek Squad.
Geek Squad, yes,
The
Geek
Student
Squad.
Computing Center sent me an email when my computer had a virus on it. And it said, your computer has a virus, come to us and we'll fix it. And I was like, okay.
How'd they know?
That's a little weird. Alrighty.
Did you go and did they fix it?
Yeah.
You probably opened the email, it gave you a virus, and then you took it in there.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
They
I
got
just
you.
downloaded some software
Who
for
fixed it?
class, but the Student Computing Center.
It
No,
probably
the
entered the
Student
network
Computing Center
interface.
can't do it. They don't do anything. Who fixed it? Not what fixed it.
For people in the center.
A student studying.
All right, this is a trick
I
question.
have no idea who it was or what they put on my computer.
Well, who did you give it to?
Person, a male.
Oh,
I don't
see there? See? There's some guy, you just don't understand this guy's trying to hit on you. Yeah.
It wasn't the fact she said male, it was how she said male.
You see?
There's a high percent chance that it would have
They're
been.
studying. They're studying. They've got these.
But how
They've
did the
got these
virus
cameras
get
in your machine, and they're studying. Say, hey.
I want her to have a
Oh,
virus.
I'm gonna give her a virus and tell her to bring her machine in. Good lines. No. You didn't know that was a line?
Absolutely
Illegal.
It's a little Well, he didn't, it sure wasn't flirty, so I don't think that.
Can I tell you something?
I won't even go there.
I'm just saying, nothing happened. Speaks about computer.
So now, what is that? It's a very crude representation of that distribution there. A normal distribution, you can put another word on the front of it, a standard normal distribution. A dadgum normal distribution. No, it's a standard normal distribution.
I'm writing that then.
It works too.
I'm a test too.
Now, I told you, please do. I told you last week that it's by definition.
Yours and you will like take the camera.
You know, it's not just by definition. How do it know? How do it know that that is the normal distribution? How does it know that that's the standard? Someone just come along and say, okay, a cat is an animal with 4 legs and, you know, furry hair, and aimed at a cat. Did they just come along and say, I want to create a normal distribution. I'm going to say that it's 34% and all this kind of stuff. No, you know how it would really, how it's
Notice it over
done?
time.
The what?
They notice it over time.
They notice it over time. It's the way that variables, lots of variables tend to be distributed. If you look at weight of American males, age 18 to 98.
That's my article.
Okay? Wait, what?
My journal article is on his weight.
Oh, yeah,
You
really?
weren't you just
What was the
writing an article
average?
with something you were interested in?
Well,
Nutrition. Nutrition.
So what
Oh,
was the average weight?
hold on, well, it broke it down.